I've had a couple of people ask for my processing and preserving tips, so I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to share this really easy approach to dealing with a whole bunch of tomatoes at once. And share it through Garden Gate and share it to all my friends, and I hope that you will all share it with your friends, because sometimes tomatoes can just be, overwhelming. You get so many that are ripe simultaneously, and you want to be able to enjoy this flavor as long as possible, and that's what this recipe is aimed to do. So you don't need a lot, you just need a food processor. This is a really simple one, and get that locked into place. And then what you need is a bowl and then a set of colanders, of basket colanders that fit into one another, because that's what you're going to use to squeeze the juice out. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and process this bowl of red tomatoes. I like to keep my varieties separated by color so that the juice and the paste stay brilliant colors and represent the variety that they are. So I kind of grade my tomatoes, and if they look like they have any bad spots, I just cut that off. But like that case, that tomato had kind of a rotten inside, so I'm just throw the whole thing out. I'm not as stingy with my tomatoes at this time of year because I have so many, but in the early season and then later, as I don't have as many ripe ones, I use every bit of flesh that I can get my hands on. I love tomatoes. Nothing beats a ripe, vine-ripened, homegrown, heirloom tomato. As much as I want to get behind all the hybrids, and they are great, they have better disease resistance and just sometimes a higher yield, a better performance, especially in challenging climates. Often nutrient density and flavor are ignored for, those other cultural qualities, and that's why I just can't get enough of heirlooms. One day, I think Craig LaHoulier will introduce some heirlooms that have better disease resistance and smaller growing habits that have the same flavor. But until then, I'm going to keep growing heirlooms. So when you've got a really ugly spot like that, I'm just kind of cutting around it and looking to see if any of the inside flesh is infected. So there's no point in making your sauce not taste as good as it should by using necrotic material from your tomatoes. So I can't quite fit all of these into this batch. So I'm just going to food process this. Now you see, these are just raw, washed, and cored tomatoes. I'm not peeling the skin, I'm not removing the seed. I don't know about y'all, but I'm too busy to do all of that. So I'm trying to be efficient in the way that I deal with all of these. So I've just dumped that container into here, and you can see it's already, juice is falling out of it. When you press it with this other colander, it just really accelerates that process. And the reason that you want to remove the juice is really simple. It's just to cut down on the time that you're going to have to cook the paste. Now, I also happen to like to use the juice in Bloody Marys, and I share the juice with a lot of groups because in the wintertime, I get to give presentations on how to make Bloody Marys. And so I use the juice that I am removing from the summer harvest for that purpose. If you don't like Bloody Marys, I'd still recommend juicing it just so that you can cut down your baking, but you can always just discard the juice. Remember that tomatoes are like 92% water. So, the more you can remove, the faster it's going to cook down, and then you can get on with your normal life, and you're not stuck in the kitchen all day. My goal generally is to try and process and preserve, about a 20-pound harvest in under an hour. And I have a pretty good track record, but I've been doing it for a few years. So I want to share these tips with everybody else so that, you know, you can enjoy your tomatoes to their fullest and, you know, not get stuck in your kitchen for too long. If your tomato looks ugly, you can just toss it. I'm saying that more for my own benefit. So you're really just trying to chop it up and agitate it. This is not going to be the final texture because after it's baked, I generally, I freeze it in this texture, but then when I go to use it in like a meal, I actually use an immersion blender. And that's what gets it into a more sauce-like texture because the food processor texture is pretty rough. This is a great way for making salsa. So you could use this base for salsa raw and just, you know, food process some garlic and onions and peppers, cilantro, add some cumin, some salt. Or you can roast it as I'm going to and then use the roasted tomato paste for a salsa. You can, you know, either then add fresh ingredients or you can, you know, saute or roast the tomatoes and peppers and to make a salsa. But you can also, with this base, because you see, I haven't added anything. There's no sugar or salt or, you know, any flavorings added. You can pretty much turn it into anything you want. So once it's roasted, I kind of use it for things like tomato soup, spaghetti sauce, pizza sauce, and then also different varieties of salsa. So you see, I'm just kind of squeezing out that final level of juice. And then I'm just going to get a roasting pan. I like to use this size. It's like a bread size because I don't have that much to roast. And I've preheated the oven to 400 degrees. And so I'm just going to kind of toss this around and get it all organized. And then deposit it into my loaf pan. And now's the opportunity, if you want, you can season it. I'm planning on using this for dinner tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and season it with a couple different things and really jazz it up. Cumin is always the right decision, so remember that. I don't use recipes or measurements, I just add some. And I got this smoked maple flavored sea salt when I was in Maine last week. And it has just a really great smoky flavor. So I'm adding some of that. And I'm gonna add some regular salt. And then I think I'm actually just gonna keep it like this for now because I want to serve a kind of a simple pasta dish with other sauteed vegetables, so I don't want this to be overwhelming. So I'm just kind of mixing that really roughly, and it'll come to basically a simmer in the oven. And you know, I generally let this roast for about 45 minutes. It's generally when the top starts to get kind of a caramely brown color, and then I pull it out. And then I typically let it just cool down, and then I put it into a 1 quart Ziploc bag and freeze it. That way it's really easy to use when I go to make something in the winter. But tonight I'm going to actually be serving this, so I won't have to go to that step. So just pop it in the oven and set my timer. And that's it. It's super easy. So I hope you give it a try. When you have a whole bunch of tomatoes, this is hands down the fastest way to be able to deal with them and be able to use them later on in the season.